As an adventure and fantasy movie fan, when Solomon Kane originally released, it was one film that I was very eager to be able to check out. And after my first watch, it has held fond memories with me ever since. James Purefoy stars in the leading role as the ruthless mercenary who, after learning his soul is bound for hell, renounces his violent ways in search for a life of peace. This 16th century sword and sorcery flick packs plenty of action and has a very respectable pace going for it. It feels natural, and in its moments where it takes a break from the action, brings intrigue into this magical world. Danger lurks all across the land as the sorcerer Malachi brings death and pain to all those who defy his rule. If you don't join his ranks, you will die. And that is enforced by the nameless, masked overlord who travels the land to do his bidding. Now make no mistake, as a fantasy movie it holds no quarrel with showing some dark visuals. It is not a light-hearted film, not for the most part. It takes itself seriously and at times it even blends in a bit of horror. Not too much, but enough to add some extra variation. Solomon himself is a fearless fighter, and Purefoy growls out each of his lines with a rough intensity. Solomon is a man of morals, and he is about the only character who is properly delved into. And even then it's mostly just to quickly glimpse a few key scenes from his past. But I suppose given the nature of the film, it was to be expected. It's not the sort to dwell too long in one location, as it aims to push forward and stride on in the present. And the film does well in that regard. I love the beginning of this film. It's easily my favourite part. 1 year prior to where the film is set, we see Solomon lead his crew of plunderers in attacking a portside city. His goal? To gain the loot from the throne room, of course. What else does a pirate seek more than his riches? Well, things swiftly turn to the worst as the Devil's Reaper formed from the shadows around him as he arrived to claim his soul. Long ago, Solomon had made a pact, and in exchange for a life of murder and greed was his soul. It was so damn cool seeing that huge flaming greatsword. It just looks so badass, and Solomon was right to hightail it the hell out of there. And from that moment, Solomon knew that he had to change. He gave away his riches, renounced his evil ways, and looked towards faith to guide him away from the darkness. He spent almost a year in solace trying to keep hidden from the devil's gaze before he was cast out. He became a pilgrim, a wanderer of the land, as he travelled alone seeking to find his true purpose. But not all paths to redemption are found through the ways of peace, and Solomon ends up learning that the hard way. After refusing to fight a few bandits and being knocked out for his troubles, he was nursed back to health by the Crowthorne family. This kind and generous bunch took him in as they gave him some rare happiness in these troubled times. The father William, played by the late Pete Postlethwaite, led them along their way. Solomon began to form close bonds with the family, in particular with William, the youngest son Samuel, as well as their daughter Meredith. And throughout their travels he protected them from more than met the eye. Solomon was able to see through a witch's disguise and drove her off before she could deal some more damage. Evil seemed to have a way of finding itself at Solomon's feet, and the next time it happened, the outcome was severe. Bandits raided the family's camp as Solomon raced back to try and save his friends. However, he was too late. The only way he was going to free them was to kill the man holding a knife to Samuel's throat. He said he would do anything, but he could not return to his violent ways, and for that, he paid the price. Samuel was murdered right before his eyes. Solomon had refused the way of violence, following his peaceful path, and innocent people were paying the price for it. Right then, he knew his purpose. With Meredith captured, he cut through every single one of those remaining bandits. And for the few that escaped, he would hunt down. William, who was on death's door, made Solomon swear to save his daughter, and if he could succeed, his soul would be redeemed. He accepted, thus beginning his new quest. He was to use his skill in combat to defeat the evil that was plaguing the land. He travelled far and wide in his attempts to find Meredith, coming up short at every corner. And even when he took refuge in a half-ruined church, even then he was not safe. Mackenzie Crux's disturbed Father Michael befriended Solomon by throwing him into his cellar, which was filled by some sort of transformed zombie creatures of some sort. Either way, Solomon just about squeezed his way out of that predicament before once again happening across his favourite trio of bandits. Only this time, his views were drastically different. And after easily dispatching 2 out of 3, the third was to give him answers. But he did not tell him what he wanted to hear. We knew that the bandit was lying about Meredith being dead, but Solomon was none the wiser, and his anger caused him to drink. And drink some more. And a little bit after that, he had given up, effectively surrendering his soul to the devil. He thought all was lost. All he was doing now was waiting for himself to be found. Now you got to give some special props to James Purefoy for this scene, as his crucifixion and clear pain in his eyes when he saw Meredith alive was etched across his face. His anguish at giving up, knowing that he was wrong, was that sucker punch that would hurt all the more if he wasn't already nailed to a cross. And after summoning every ounce of strength that he had to pull himself off the damn thing, he was about to be put to the sword. It was a good thing his former crew didn't leave his side, as they saved him from certain death. So then, he was not alone. He had a crew alongside him and a target on his mind. He was to find Malachi, cut off the source of evil, and rescue Meredith to save his soul. The only thing which stood in his way was his brother. It came to no surprise that the masked overlord was Solomon's older brother Marcus. It was a little obvious in its build-up, considering Malachi's reign of terror was being broadcast from Solomon's father's home. But the fight was still very much enjoyable. Solomon didn't want to fight his brother, but Malachi's control was just too much for him to overcome, and regrettably he had to put his brother to the sword, which then left Malachi. Well, for about a second that is, as Malachi brought forth one of the devil's demons to end Solomon's resistance. This was an unfightable enemy, and the CGI for the demon was actually quite alright. Solomon had to use the 5 Ds, dodge, duck, dip, dive and dodge, to keep himself out of the thing's range, and after he bought himself a few seconds of time, he struck down Malachi with the only chance that he had. The devil then sucked everything back through that portal that was his, as Solomon collapsed in a heap to the ground. And after a few moments, life was still with him. He fulfilled his promise to William and returned Meredith to her mother, and in doing so reclaimed his soul and found his true purpose.
There was a time when the world was plunging into darkness, a time of witchcraft and sorcery, when no one stood against evil. That time is over.
My overall verdict for Solomon Kane is a 7 out of 10. It's a solid movie and I really enjoy watching it. Its mix of fantasy, action and adventure blend together very well, and its steady pacing is among its best aspects, along with a lead actor who seemed to embrace that main role. I'd like to see James Purefoy get a few more high-profile roles, as he is undoubtedly a talent. To be honest, his character does look a lot like Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing. Quite a lot now, actually, thinking about it. But hell, that isn't exactly a bad thing, is it? That character looked badass in his own right. The film's runtime is approximately an hour and 40 minutes, and throughout the whole thing, there is never a dull moment. It's cleanly shot, the action and fighting scenes are great to watch, and the scores which play in the background fit in excellently with the tone of the film. The Cloak and Dagger soundtrack in particular is my personal favourite. The supporting cast may lack depth, most certainly, and could have done with a bit more thawing out. And plot-wise, the film was quite predictable in its outcomes. Max von Sydow shows up once again, adding to that ever-growing resume that he has. Philip Winchester played Solomon's most loyal former warrior, and those of you with a keen eye may recognise Rory McCann, who plays the Hound in Game of Thrones. Like I said, it's a film that is well worth watching. The film takes you on a journey of redemption as Solomon Kane goes from being a ruthless mercenary to a moral-focused man determined to fulfilling a promise. I would recommend it to anyone who enjoys the fantasy genre. I hope you'll be able to check it out. If you've seen the film yourself, what are your thoughts? What did you make of it? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one.